A quick note about the origins of this talk. What? I'm going to move to this one really soon. Mushon heard the longer version, of the 50-minute version of this talk last year at the B3 Biennial in Frankfurt. He wrote many insightful notes on his phone, which he proceeded to never share with me. So I expect the notes from that talk and this talk combined in my email sometime in the next year. Both talks are, by the way, based on an older talk I gave at the Tel Aviv University's annual sci-fi symposium, which is happening now. And it's a really interesting conference. I invite you all tomorrow to join me over there to talk about sci-fi stuff, like we heard a little bit about in the second session today. All right. So, video games. This is Adam Jensen. Look at his cool shades. Jensen is the protagonist of the Deus Ex video game series, one of today's most popular science fiction game franchises. Here are some of the recent entries in the series. The world of Deus Ex is a near-future scenario. In this scenario, robotics and cybernetic technologies inspired by real tech from our present day have become much more advanced. Mechanical prosthetics and neurological implants are very pervasive in society and enhancing the human body and its capabilities. Adam is one of those who sport many implants. He works as a security expert conducting investigations for a private corporation, and his body augmentations are useful to that end. Here you can see in the photo he has robotic arms, he has some kind of full body armor, but I'm most interested in these cool shades welded onto his eyes. So, this is a screenshot from one of the games where you can see a sort of menu of his available body enhancements. He has leg prosthesis, he has extensions to his nervous systems, his heart, his lungs, and to his eyes. All of these augmentations, of course, have some kind of gameplay implication. And the ones in focus right here are his smart vision. Let's see how the smart vision works in the game. So this is a screen capture from the game. Jensen is living in Prague at the moment. Right now he's ducking behind a wall and he's about to infiltrate the building across the street to defuse some kind of hostage situation. I press on a button and the game switches to smart vision. All the details of the scene disappear into the background, highlighting his opponents inside and giving him information relevant to the task at hand. You can see above each opponent there's like the distance, etc. This is how it looks in action. Okay, this GIF looked much better when I downloaded it. Let's move forward. So here's how it works from up close. The UI layered on top of the entire visual field like markers, color coding everything important. Adding info, mostly quantifiable data, that the system designer deemed useful to the game goals, and graying out all the trivial details. The thing is, this particular mechanic is beginning to show up more and more in games with highly detailed graphics, as the industry's go-to sense-making metaphorical tool for overly sensual simulations. Here's a screenshot from a very popular Batman game. You can switch on Batman's smart glasses, here they call it detective mode, flattening the scene and highlighting his enemies in a sort of X-ray vision kind of way. If you have fantasy-themed games, you have fantasy-themed metaphors for the same thing. So this is a screenshot from a popular medieval fantasy game called The Witcher. The hero is investigating the disappearance of a carriage and uses his sixth sense to highlight the tracks on the ground with sort of red marker that only he can see, and us, the players. And here's a screen capture from a YouTube channel called Gaming Sins. This channel, they play video games and judge the designers for every overused or lazy cliche they find. Here we see the young hero of the popular game Horizon Zero Dawn, a game that blends fantasy and science fiction, conducting an investigation into some heinous crime. Can you guess what Sin 67 is? Augmented reality continue to be a plague on modern games. What bothered them and what bothers me is mostly the way I was playing these games. I noticed at one point I began to leave Smart Vision always on and play the entire game like that. It made everything simpler. I knew exactly where to go and what to do quicker. Was that the intention of the creators, though? Probably not. This headline is from an article about the art director of those Batman games I showed you before, who researched his players and found out most of them played his game like I did. He lamented the fact that they were missing out on all the richly detailed environments his team built by seeing the game world through this hyper-utilitarian filter. But the players weren't wrong. With all due respect to the art director, they came here to play a game. These games just aren't as complex as their looks might suggest. The Smart Vision actually dumbs down the visual field to the point where it is systematically meaningful, showing me just the things that I can interact with. You see that message board on the left? Behind the counter, grayed out because I could never in a million years pin a note on it myself. It's just not part of this game's interaction system. There is no button I can press that is mapped to the function pin little note on office board. The board's qualities and affordances are understood by people, but not by the reality of the simulation, which sees it as meaningless. So let's roll back for a second to some definitions. Games, all games, are essentially systems. The magic circle within which we play is made of nothing more than governing rules and the data indicating the state of the game at any given moment. Video games are such systems of data given digital image. So all game visuals are categorically data visualizations. Not simply because data is the material of the digital medium, not simply because data is the material of the visual medium, but because the nature of games themselves is that they are systems of data and every action taken within the games is essentially a manipulation of data. The thing is that graphical fidelity in computers grew exponentially over the last few decades, but interaction design couldn't keep up. I'll show you a classic test case of that. So this is the original Castle Wolfenstein game from 1981. Your principal activity in this game as the war prisoner in the Second World War called B.J. Blazkowicz is to shoot Nazis as you escape from your prison. You control it with something that looked like this in 1981, and you can see that every visual element on the screen is useful. You have your avatar, you have your enemies that you need to shoot with this swastika, you have some ammo boxes, and you have markers of where you can go and not go, just affordances and goals. This is Wolfenstein 3D from 1992, a breakthrough game in terms of graphics. Look at those richly detailed columns and those scary Nazis, wow. And what you did in that game is shoot Nazis, and that's how you controlled it. Moving forward to 2001, look at this amazing afternoon lighting. Still shooting Nazis, and the keyboard looked really, really advanced. 2009, these fields have this impressionistic quality to them, and we're shooting Nazis, and that's how we control it. And finally, at the end of 2017, Wolfenstein II, the new Colossus, the fourth reboot of the franchise. We walk around, shoot Nazis, and that's how we control it. So we've gone from, the visual representation has gone from this to that. It is vastly more complex and more detailed, but the interaction design and the logic systems behind it have undergone changes that are subtler. This lush scene represents a widespread mimetic desire, similar to that of the realist movement in 19th century art that have taken over the digital games medium. But while this graphics culture seems more realistic in its relations to actual reality, it is excessive in relations to the systemic data it represents. In summary, if realistic graphics are actually a layer of fiction on top of the actual data, in order to bridge that gap, and I mean the gap between the player's perception of the game reality and the systemic reality as it is, a visual metaphor is needed. The irony is not lost on me, that to represent a stripping down of excess visual layers, games culture gravitated towards the metaphor of augmented reality, which is usually regarded as a visual layer that is added on top of whatever reality it augments. I'll stop here. Thank you very much.